This is Christian Breton of Quebec City, Quebec. You're listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, December the 15th, 2024. Just 10 days away from Christmas. Hope you're all ready for it. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill. You're listening to CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. And we have 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio for you. Lots of interesting stuff going on out there. We've got some ratings information for you. We got a DX test coming up, some pirate news, and some holiday programming on shortwave for you. So lots of interesting items. So I guess we should get going right away talking about ratings of Canadian radio stations. This is something that we used to get much more detail on, but the Numeris company has decided that they're not going to publish that stuff publicly. But fortunately, we have a gentleman in Toronto, David Bray, who writes for Broadcast Dialogue, and he has put together some information on the fall radio ratings for some of the major markets in Canada. So he begins by saying, they say rock and roll will never die. Can the same be said of the medium that brought us those songs? Not so long ago, Bell Media announced the sale of 45 of its radio stations, shockingly declaring it's not a viable business anymore. Radio ad revenue continues to decline across the country. Radio measurements has become problematic. Questions around Numeris. How long can this continue? I've worked on radio for 40 years and I continue to love the medium. Still, certain facts can't be ignored. The ppm numbers I discussed below display a few wonky results. There have been a variety of problems with ppm, and sample sizes continue to be a real concern. The ppm methodology has been extremely expensive to operate, making the task of raising sample sizes difficult. In days gone by, we used to discuss the three-hit theory. With ppm, it is difficult to achieve a frequency of 2. That raises the question, if Numeris shows stations in a relatively poor light to buyers, are we somehow doing a disservice to station owners? Is the system insufficiently reliable and stable for buyers, analysts? Right now, owners are exploring options. Tomorrow, I will discuss the diary markets and the alternatives being explored there. With this book, radio retains an average weekly reach of 83% for Canadians aged 12 and above. In-home represents 49% of tuning. Out-of-home represents 51%. We should note that for Canadians, 10% of radio consumption comes from AM/FM live radio streaming. The latest ppm release for Numeris completes a 13-week period covering August the 26th through November the 24th of 2024. So let's look at 5 of the major ppm markets.
So Toronto, bragging rights at the top of the ratings heap go to CBC Radio 1, delivering an 11.7% share for age 12 and plus, followed closely by CHFI with an 11.5%. CHFI FM comes out on top with women 25 to 54 with a 13.7% share, up from 12.3%. For men 25 to 54, Boom leads with 10.1%, down from 12%. In a surprising shift, 640 AM CFIQ is out in front for 18 to 34 with a 12.9% share. CHFI is number 1 for 18 to 34 female, topping the list at 16.1%.
Out to Vancouver on the West Coast, CKNW grabs the top spot for adults 12 and over, with a 12.1 share of hours tuned, down from 12.2%. Taking the top spot for women 25 to 54 is Move 103.5 with a 20.3 share, up from 18.8. Virgin Radio holds the lead with male 25 to 54 listeners, delivering a 13.1 share, followed by Fox at 11.1. Move 103.5 is out in front for men 18 to 34 with a 14.3 share of hours tuned. And in a very unusual shift, when it comes to women 18 to 34, CFOX drops to 9.1% from 26.7% in the last book. And Move takes a huge lead with 30%. So that's a pretty shocking statistic for CFOX in Vancouver.
In Edmonton, Up 99.3 takes number one spot with age 12 and over, posting a 10.5% share of hours tuned. Now holds top spot for female 25 to 54, delivering a 16.3 share, and that's down from 17.3. Now Radio tops the list for male 25-54 with a 13.4% share, up from 11.8. For males 18 to 34, The Bear is out in front at 16.8, up from 6.9. Up 99.3, led with females 18-34, delivering 24.1, up from 14.3. Another unusual statistical jump.
We go to Calgary, Alberta. XL 103 leads the way with age 12 and over with a 15.9 share. 90.3 AMP radio is popular with women, taking the number one spot for female 25 to 54, delivering 11.3% share. For men 25 to 54, X 92.9 rules with 13.8, up from 13.1. X 92.9 is in the top spot for men 18 to 34, delivering a 21.2 share, up from 16.3. And CJAY tops women 18 to 34, posting a 12.6.
And here in Montreal, CHMP 98.5 FM is number one for the age 12 and over. It's a Francophone station with a 18.6% share, down from 21.4. For age 12 and over, Anglo, CJAD 800, number one with a 31.3% share, down from 31.6. 107.3 Rouge FM is tops with women, taking number one spot for women 25-54 and the Franco side, delivering a 17% share. For 25-54 women, Anglo, The Beat 92.5 is well out in front with a 24.3% share, down from 32.4. That's a steep dive. Males 25-54 Franco, CHMP 98.5 FM is on top at 23.3% share, down from 23.4. And for men 25-54 Anglo, Chaume FM, number one at 19.9% share, down from 20.8. Now, there's a few interesting things. The first one that surprised me, we talk about AM radio being a tough sell, where most people listen on FM and so on. The example of Toronto, where for some reason 640 AM CFIQ suddenly gets out there. We see the other cities with these weird moves of stations.
Yeah, one thing to note, it's going from summer listening to fall listening. So that has an impact, but that usually means it goes up in the fall for most stations and drops. The summer is kind of, they don't put as much emphasis. They gear their stations up for the fall ratings. So some really strange things going on, as David Bray says in his article. It takes a lot more analysis, I think, to really try to figure out what's going on. The one thing I have to mention, of course, though, in Montreal, there's no sign of Virgin Radio again. I don't know. We've beat it to death talking about what they should be doing with that radio station. I'd like to see the numbers again, because I'm pretty sure it's gone down again, as it has for years now. But they just refuse to do anything else with it. Very strange.
And in a related story, in the Francophone side, there was an article in the newspaper La Presse in which they were mentioning how numbers in general of the listening audience of the radio is going down. And they were saying that it seems to be overall, and I think we can apply, because they're talking about Francophone radio, but I think we can probably apply those numbers to Anglo radio too, if one side is going down. And they're giving examples of year over year, fall 2024 against fall 2023, and a few of the most popular shows that they're talking about. For example, CHMP 98.5, the morning show, L'Agacé le matin. In 2023, the listeners per minute, 90,300 listeners per minute. And that got down to 66,000 listeners per minute. Another example, on Ici Première, Radio-Canada, 58,100 going down to 50,000. And it goes on with all the shows. Every single show, wherever the station is going down. And they, of course, are saying here that they're not measuring online podcasting because maybe some people are not listening to the actual radio, but will listen later on, for example, to the recorded show as a podcast and so on. But it's still showing that less people listening to live radio year over year. And this is interesting and probably scary for these radio stations and, the advertising revenue.
Yeah, it's a trend that I'm sure all the analysts are trying to pick apart and see what they can do with it and what it means. But I think they have to find some way of factoring in what other tools people are using to access programming. Because it may not be that your program's not popular anymore. It's just that people have found a more convenient way to listen to it.
Yep.
So I think we really they need to look at that to see where it all ends up. We're going to summarize the 2024 Canadian Radio Award winners, which were announced recently. This is via Broadcast Dialogue. Pattison Media's 102.3 Now Radio, CKNO-FM in Edmonton, is among the multiple winners at the 2024 Canadian Radio Awards. Now Radio won Major Market Station of the Year and Best On-Air Promotion in a major market for its Swifty OK contest, while Program Director Jay Stone captured Program Director of the Year for a major market. The station was also the catalyst behind Best Community Service Initiative winner Alberta Day for Caring for Jasper, which saw the province's radio stations come together to raise more than $1.5 million to support those impacted by this summer's wildfires in Jasper. Evanov Communication Stations in Winnipeg won in multiple categories. Their Winnipeg Adam West captured Program Director of the Year in a medium market, while the Energy 106 morning show Wheeler in the Morning won Best On-Air Team for music in a medium market. Energy 106 and Z103.5 in Toronto also won Best Imaging Production in a large market, while Evanov's joint entry for Hot 100.5 Winnipeg and Light 92.1 Brantford won in a medium market category. Rogers Sports and Media Shea 106 Ottawa also captured 2 awards, including Station of the Year Medium Market and Best Community Service Initiative in a medium market for its Deeds promotion. In the small market category, Fort St. John, BC Independent Station 100.1 Moose FM picked up 2 awards for Program Director Chris Walker, winning Program Director of the Year Small Market, while the station also won Best Podcast in Small Market for Before the Peace, focused on telling the stories of Indigenous and Métis people of BC's Peace region. And here in Quebec, interesting, Kahnawakes, the Mohawk radio station, community station, K103.7 The Monster, CKRK-FM, claimed 2 awards. Paul Grafe won Best Anchor and Reporter for a small market, while Mitch Craig captured Best Imaging Voice for a small market. By network, Rogers Sports and Media led wins with 14, followed by Pattison Media with 8, and Evanov, which picked up a total of 5 wins. Bell Media had 4, with Chorus Radio and Harvard Media each earning 3, and Vista Radio's 1, 2. You can get a full list, and it's lengthy, of all the different award winners at CanadianRadioAwards.com. And I have to say, I was quite disappointed scanning through them to see that other than the awards that Kahnawakes Community Mohawk Station won, only one other Montreal radio station received 1 nomination, not an award, but a nomination. And that was a program director at Chom FM. Otherwise, 0 for the Montreal market.
Well, we say it all the time. When you start tuning around the Montreal market radio, it's rather stale and boring. We talked about the Stephen King radio stations last week. And there's a good news for those that want to try to get one of the stations on AM WZON 620 is going to have a DX test. This is from Mike Terry. WZON AM-620 in Bangor, Maine has graciously agreed to perform a DX test before they leave the air for good at the end of the year. Test will be on Sunday, December 22nd at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 06 hours UTC. Still waiting on final determination of the duration. Please spread the word wherever you think it would be appropriate. Hopefully a bunch of you will be able to log Maine. This from the mwdx Slack group arranged by David Pete, Old Town Maine, and via Russ Edmunds to International Radio Club of America IO group. And do share the news. Sunday, December 22nd, 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 06 UTC. It's happening on 620 kilohertz.
More than likely, they're going to be including some sweep tones or CW IDs or what have you, and some special programming. So it's worth giving it a shot. Maine is often not an easy state for DXers to pick up in different parts of North America. So this might be a good opportunity to give it a shot. Here in Montreal, you're going to have to battle your way through WVMT in Burlington, Vermont, which comes in very clearly in Montreal. But if they have the tones and what have you in the broadcast, you might be able to hear that underneath them. We have some news about the ongoing debate about keeping AM radios in cars. Hurricane Helene disaster drives bid to keep AM radio. This is by Paul Bedard in the Washington Examiner. With Congress on the fence about requiring car makers to include AM radio, proponents this week are flooding the zone with a huge push to get it, the sometimes life-saving but old-school technology, across the finish line. Several groups, including first responders, are citing the recent Hurricane Helene disaster in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas as the reason to keep cars and trucks equipped with AM radio. Many were stranded by the storm and later, without electricity, relied on their AM radios to hear emergency broadcasts and reports about where to get food, water, and shelter. One group of first responders, for example, wrote in a 2-page letter to House and Senate leaders that it is critical to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act to keep people alive. During and immediately after Helene, the impacted population relied upon AM radio to navigate their families away from rising waters, to receive updates on where to access supplies or shelter, to know which bridges and roads were out and which remained passable, and sometimes just to hear another human's voice while stranded alone in the dark. The letters are signed by several Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina first responders. The act will ensure that the public retains access to this vital public safety tool at all times. Not acting on this bill will threaten the safety of Americans in future disasters. We respectfully ask that Congress pass this bill before the Congress adjourns, they added. Some car makers, especially for electric vehicles, are cutting AM from their offerings, claiming the signal is distorted by the power system. But a group such as the National Association for Broadcasters said AM radio is the best way to transmit emergency messages during disasters. In a briefing book, the NAB said AM radio plays an essential role in our nation's emergency communications infrastructure. Its ability to transmit signals over long distances, wide accessibility, and super resiliency have made it an invaluable tool for disseminating critical information during various emergency situations. AM radio's enduring popularity with the American public and the sense of community it provides to diverse populations also underscores the platform's value during times of crisis. The act would require all new vehicles to be equipped with AM for no additional cost. Congress is expected to consider the act this month and might include it in the National Defense Authorization Act. The letter provided to Secrets said most first responders are on board. It said the legislation is supported by the entirety of the public safety community from the federal, state, and the local levels, who have repeatedly warned that the bill is necessary for protecting the public and keeping them informed before, during, and in the wake of disasters. Given how much we and the residents of our home states relied upon AM radio during and in the immediate aftermath aftermath of Hurricane Helene, we have firsthand experience as to why they are correct. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, even little local disasters that happened here in the past few years about no power shows that AM radio is important and radio in general. And major disasters like a hurricane, well, there's AM radio is the best way to make large distances and give information to a maximum amount of people. So what's happening with our sun? Well, our sun this week was rather quiet in general. We did have a little bit of flaring that did create some geomagnetic unrest, but nothing major. In the coming week, what's going to happen is that we do have Sunspot 3917 that has the capability of flaring with X-class solar flares. We'll see if that happens, and hopefully not too much disturbances will happen. That will mean that the conditions will continue to be pretty good. It shows that we're in the deep of winter now, pretty much, because in the evenings, signals are, the maximum usable frequency is down now. And we see that signals above about 10, 11 megahertz are not as plenty as they used to be in the past months. Sunspot number 91, solar flux to 161. And you know what? If you want to witness all of this, well, you got to turn on a radio and listen.
This is Gary Neal of Cockeysville, Maryland. You're listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
So in our next news item, Trump picks hardline Republican Kari Lake to lead Voice of America. This is by Reuters via John Fisher, North Chelmsford, Massachusetts. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on Wednesday said he was picking Kari Lake, a former news anchor and a hardline Republican who failed to win an Arizona Senate seat last month, to be the director of the U.S. government-funded media outlet Voice of America. Trump, in a post on his Truth Social site, said Lake will ensure that the American values of freedom and liberty are broadcast around the world fairly and accurately, unlike the lies spread by the fake news media. Lake, a strong Trump supporter who has echoed his false claims about fraud at the 2020 election, also lost the governor's race in swing state Arizona in 2022 and was previously an anchor at Phoenix-based Fox 10. Voice of America is an international media broadcaster that operates in more than 40 languages, online and on radio and television. During his first term in office, Trump clashed with VOA and accused it of amplifying Chinese propaganda after it showed a segment on a light show making the reopening of Wuhan, the city where the coronavirus pandemic first emerged. So this is going to be something to listen for, see how this affects the overall programming at Voice of America.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories out there already online that some people have come up with. So we'll have to see where his emphasis is, what he wants to put out over the international airwaves for people to listen to. We have a bit of a story update on some pirate activity going on, and the FCC has been busy again ringing up more of the pirates, this time in the greater Boston area. The FCC has announced penalties against 3 more pirate operators in the Boston area. That city and the surrounding area is one of the hotbeds of these illegal broadcasts in the U.S. All 3 of these cases were in the town of Brockton, Massachusetts. The commission has issued a $120,000 forfeiture against Reynold David for operating an unauthorized station on 101.9 megahertz, known as Lot Nivo FM. A $40,000 penalty was imposed against Giovanni Pierre and Mario Turner for operating a station on 96.5. That station is calling itself Radio Tele Brockton 96.5 and Brockton Heat. And finally, the FCC fined João Vieira $40,000 for operating a station known as Brockton FM on 102.1 megahertz. Each had received a notice of apparent liability for forfeiture from the commission in April. However, none of them replied. Each had 30 days to respond before the forfeitures are confirmed. The Preventing Illegal Radio Abuse Through Enforcement, or PIRATE Act of 2020, provided the FCC with additional enforcement authority, including higher penalties. The FCC has proposed more than $14.5 million in fines and imposed $5.5 million in the past 4 years, though there is no word on how much, if any, of that money has been collected by the federal government.
Which
big surprise.
Which means they're going to continue because they're going to say, well, they're not doing anything.
I don't know. I don't know how they're not moving in and just pulling the plug on these guys, but they don't seem to be doing that.
So next we have our yearly look at holiday programs on shortwave. This is via Allen Rowe in Teddington, UK. So the programming from December 14th, 2024 to January 1st, 2025. Allen reports, as was the case in recent years, I have again been collating a list of programming schedules to be broadcast mostly on shortwave over the forthcoming holiday period, this time covering the period Saturday, December 14th to Wednesday, 1st of January 2025. The list includes both seasonal and non-seasonal programming, regular weekly music programming where no special advanced program information has been provided are not usually included in this list, although there may be some exceptions. However, please refer to my Music on Shortwave list. The first edition of this compilation is now available to download. We will share the link to this, and the event that further information becomes available, I will issue updates and posts to the above permanent links that we'll share once again. Small changes will be issued as incremental versions, which will not be announced in social media posts. Significant changes and additions will be issued as new versions and will be announced. It will be worth checking the above links from time to time for the latest information. I hope that you find this resource useful. And of course, there's an email if you want to add or correct the list. We'll share all of that, and it is a great list. Allen Rowe does take a lot of time to really update and make this list available, so it is totally worth checking out.
Yeah, and on our show next week, we'll have some more detailed information about some special programming coming up for Christmas. So we hope you'll tune into that show for our pre-Christmas edition of the International Radio Report.
And we have a couple of ham radio contests.
Next weekend, a few things going on. First, organized by the Czech Radio Club, is the WZON RTTY contest. It's a full day, 0000 to 2359 Zulu, December 21st. 10 meters through 80 meters, and the mode is radio teletype.
And we have the Croatian CW contest, 1400 Zulu, December 21st to 1400 Zulu, December 22nd, organized by the Croatian Amateur Radio Association. The bands are 160 through 10 meters without the work bands, and the mode is CW. And we are out of time.
We thank you for tuning in. We will give you our contact information, our email address, radioreport@yahoo.com. Our show live streams and is archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group, International Radio Report, we welcome one new member this week, Dennis Dura in New Jersey, and we invite you to join as well. Our YouTube channel, where you can go listen to our programs. You can find us on youtube.com/@IRR, and we invite you to subscribe. Finally, our X account is at IRRCKUT. We invite you to follow us there. So please follow us to next Sunday, where, as I said, we'll have some advanced Christmas programming and holiday programming for you. And thanks for listening today to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Have a great week, everybody.